First, thank you very much for joining. I know it's the last day of Big Data London, and you've probably seen a lot of talks, right? So what I would promise is I'm not going to talk about AI. That's my promise. But I'm going to talk about that thing that you need for AI. So hopefully no one leaves and everyone's just staying. Perfect. Let's start. So about me. I'm Jake Robert Mangaya. I'm 4.5 years already at SumUp. I'm currently the engineering manager of data platform. I'm based in Berlin. I traveled to London for Big Data London to explore the city and also do the speech. I'm with my teammates in the front here, so there you go. On the side, I really love naming columns and tables. I'm trying to work on my personal project as well to solve this problem. So if you're in this space, I'd love to talk to you. Some of my socials, which are not aligned, apparently. My LinkedIn is there, and I have a website that's some content about data as well. So about our business and SumUp. So we're more known about our card readers. If you've been to coffee shops here in London, like this, you've probably seen our product or used it. But we're not just a card reader company. We're also expanding our business through the years. We've expanded through our online store, our POS Lite. We have our SumUp Pay, card readers, kiosks, and everything else. We are actually in some of the stadiums here in London, if you have been there. But this is just part of the story. We are already at 4 million customers already in 36 markets. As a company, we have 3,000 SumUpers and employees, around 90 nationalities and 20 offices. So, Jake, why are you telling me this? This is to give you a brief background of our data story, right? Combining all of this card readers that you have seen, plus our number of users, you could imagine that we have some data here and there. So here's where we have started, and I hope the few slides that I will be showing you will sound familiar. We started simple, very, very simple. We didn't invest into those data warehouse. We went to a simple Postgres data warehouse. That is our data warehouse that we were using. We started with a central data engineering team, taking care of everything, including all-up tables, online analytical processing tables, that we call it. There were basic requirements. Very simple things that you could really manage, like basic reporting, analytics. But as we grow as a company and as we grow as a business, things start to become complex. Our Postgres we were self-hosting was not really working out. We needed to upgrade it to the biggest EC2 cluster out there. Our data teams once more, they were saying, hey, the normal analytics or the basic analytics that you were providing 1 month ago is not working anymore. We are expanding and expanding more. But SumUp became successful, and we went to a hyper-growth phase. And as you could see, any hyper-growth company, the data team became a bottleneck. It was not fun, I would say. We were firefighting, on a daily basis. We probably, our meme is like this, this is fine meme, if you know about it. That is, most used during our time. We had multiple data issues, even things that are in parallel, which are orchestration service, Airflow and Tableau back then was not working out. And lastly, which is, I think, the most important one, is our stakeholders got frustrated. When they got frustrated, they also lost trust of data. And one thing that is not in this slide, the stakeholders actually created their own data teams. They hired one in Brazil. They hired a few more in the US just to create, like, hey, you're a bottleneck. I'm going to hire more people in my domain. And again, as you know, this will create a lot of problems. So what we did as a company is did some planning. As an outcome of that planning is, hey, let's adopt Snowflake and dbt because that's the trend back then. We wanted to hire more analytics engineers because, obviously, we wanted to have dbt. And we also wanted to change the notion of all-app. Before, it was just all-app and OLTP. Now we wanted to create data products. And if you've seen the problems, you probably will be thinking what I'm thinking already. We also wanted to have a new data strategy. And that data strategy is, of course, we wanted to go data mesh as any other. But our data mesh attempts had some, more challenges that you would see. And this is what I would love to show to you in the next slides. For those who are unfamiliar with data mesh, there are 4 principles, right? Again, we're just going to have a brief overview. One is domain ownership. Second is a data as a product, where I will be focusing on today. The third one is self-serve data infrastructure. And the fourth is federated governance. Again, if you need more information, there's a link down below about data mesh, and you could cover that. But what is important is how we did it at SumUp, right? What we try to do first is obviously, hey, you know what? We are a data engineering team. Why don't we rename and rebrand to data platform, right? As a platform, our responsibility is to provide that self-serve data infrastructure. The next thing that we did was actually, according to the book and the blogs out there, we need to have domain ownership, right? What we try to do there is we enable the data producers to actually ingest the data themselves. So in the previous setup that we had, is like data engineers were acting like as a middleman. We want to remove that. We want the domain owners to own it itself. The third one was we created data as a product. As you have seen earlier, we hired more analytics engineers, and we want them to own the code that was previously owned by the central team. So there was a lot of handover process. Hey, this is the code before, now it's yours. And my favorite one, federated computational governance. What we started is, again, reading all the blogs, it's like we started with a data contract as a YAML. Hey, this column should be within this value, within this parameter. These are the expected value. It should not be null. We did all of that. We also added documentations and best practices in kind of Confluence pages, Notion pages, Google Docs. But as you probably have seen, we have implemented it based on our own interpretation. But slowly, it wasn't a data mesh, actually. It was more of a data mess. So we had some wake-up calls. These are actual kind of quotes that happened. Hey, why is data mesh creating more problems than solutions? As you know, when you decentralize stuff, things become slower. As our business, we were in multiple time zones. Imagine if the Brazil team is owning one of the data marts, and then they need to interact with the US team and also the German team. Now, the communication takes like 2 days before they even agree on one thing. Our data ingestion wasn't perfect. And what we have seen is, after 2 years, it still wasn't at the right place that we wanted to be. What we realized is when you decentralize stuff as part of the data mesh, the quality decreases over time because each team doesn't have the same level that you want it to be before. Another one, like I mentioned, we created data contracts and we spent months just to debate how a data contract would look like. But what we failed is no one enforces it. It's basically a piece of paper, but now what? And lastly, as a fintech, I'm not super happy to have this problem. We had 3 definitions of revenue across the company. Because, again, we said, hey, as part of the data mesh principles, you own your own stuff. But even though we had a source of truth that our CEO and C-levels are looking at, we weren't able to stop the smaller teams to create their own definition when the main definition doesn't fit to their case. What happens is when new joiners comes in and they search revenue, they would see 3 columns. But actually, and we had to explain, hey, don't use that revenue, use this revenue. And it's a bit tiring. So clearly, that didn't work. And some things need to change, right? And even though I wanted to focus on the whole data mesh principles, I'd like to focus on how we tried to solve data products. Funnily, I tried to Google what a data product is before this talk, and people are still not able to agree on the definition. My favorite source is Reddit, right? It's like, hey, in the year 2025, do we actually know what a data product actually is? But what is important is not trying to be on the same page of the definition. Maybe we need to think differently. And in this, why don't we focus on the outcomes of a data product rather than the definition itself? And one easy way to do it is try to make analogies of things that we are familiar of. And in our case, why don't we treat data products just like hotels? Some of you are trying to be skeptical, but let's see how it goes. So if you're not from London, this is probably how you chose a hotel. You went from your favorite booking website. This one is from Trivago, as I've worked with them before. And you probably searched for it, right? Added a few parameters that you need, like budget, cost, location, 3-star hotel, and everything else. But also, you need to choose like the ratings, the reviews. Yes, it might be within your budget, but you're probably looking to it. And I'd probably be sure that you'll be able to find a hotel within maybe 10 to 15 minutes, right? And that's a very good experience. So how do we translate that into our data products, right? Could it make it easy as a booking as a hotel? Let's see. And this is what we did at SumUp. What we did at SumUp is we made our data products easily searchable. We invested early on our data catalogs after thinking that things are not going well. We also invested into adding meaningful documentations and descriptions because, yes, maybe the data product is searchable, but you don't know what it is, right? So you also need those. And as you grow over time and you know about this product, you should enrich it with more metadata. Owners, data quality checks, Slack channels, lineage, and everything that you could think of. And I would say there's a lot more things to add. So, as I mentioned, invest early on data catalogs and your life will be better. The next one is, why don't we bring the hotel ownership mindset into data products? The question that you need to ask yourself when you're creating your own data products is, how would you serve your data to hundreds or thousands of people? You're not renting an Airbnb for 2 people. You're not a landlord and just renting your house. You are actually serving it to 100 people. And your goal is for this 100 people to have the same experience as each other. So that's a bit of different thinking, right? As obvious as it sounds, the payments data product should be owned and governed by the payments data team. It's a non-negotiable, right? If this is your hotel, then yes, you should own it end to end. That goes from the full ownership of the development, deployment, and operations. Because, again, if you pass it to another person, probably it won't be at the same level as you want it to be. What we all actually did as well, and this is where I would like to commend my teammates here in the front, is we made booking a hotel easier, right? What we mean by this is when we went to a decentralized model, the access control was really, really hard, I would say. In our experience, we got stuck in a lot of Jira tickets requesting from A to B, but we lost context of A to B, actually, because now we are a data platform team. What we did is we invested in creating a UI that is very easy for anyone at SumUp to understand. And as you can see here, we have data platform, you have the domain owners of it, you have the roles that are part of that domain as well. And if you are a user of this UI, getting access to our data is as easy as a few clicks, similar to booking a hotel. Data product owners and consumers doesn't need us anymore in the data platform. They just manage it themselves, use our UI, and they could approve or reject someone's role. And in this case, I requested as a data scientist, and hopefully I get rejected because I'm not. And now we're going to the actual point of my talk. One thing that we should think about is setting your stars. What do I mean by that, right? when you're booking at a hotel, I think it's a global thing to know what a 1-star and 5-star hotel is, right? You probably have some idea of what that means. And it gives you a good expectation, not only as an owner that you have to maintain, but also when you're a consumer, which is when you're booking a hotel. This means that if I'm aiming to build a 5-star hotel, then I really need to invest time, effort, cost just to build this hotel, right? According to the Hotel Star Union, right, there is a predefined list across Europe just to have this rating, right? It's fixed. It's kind of respected, governed by the Hotel Stars Union. For example, here, a 1-star hotel would have 8 hours of support and reception and services, while a 3-star would have 10 hours. However, if your hotel doesn't have a hairdryer, it's not a 3-star, right? So better check it once you go back. But again, in simple terms, as I mentioned, 1-star means low quality, and 5 stars means high quality. And this also applies to your data product, if your data product has 1 star or 5 stars. But it doesn't stop there. A 1-star is also a low effort thing, but a 5-star is really high effort, right? And how could we really bring this together in terms of the data product? Our attempt at SumUp is trying to combine this and move it to what we call tiers. We have introduced data tiers and created a very simple rule-based mechanism which says, hey, if you are a data that you want to show to merchants and revenue facing, you should create a 5-star hotel, right? You're setting that up front. And with that, to be considered a 5-star hotel, you need to have owners, descriptions, your data lineage, your runbook. Your data quality should have full coverage and anomaly detection. And most importantly, you have on-call. And that is required. And that's what we did into having a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Again, in the next slide, I will show you a glimpse of how we implemented it technically. Is what we have seen to make it easier for teams is to combine Data Hub and DBT as part of the synergy. If you are on DBT now, you could actually start tomorrow. It's super simple by saying, hey, this is the metadata, this is the owner, and this is the data tier, right? What we have seen so far in a lot of stuff is people were creating this data tier and owners in a separate data contract. So it's super hard to manage because the teams are already doing the DBT. Why don't we put the code there as well? So that is what we are thinking about. And the beauty of it, if you have Data Hub, is it syncs there and you could search about all of this metadata similar to the hotel. What we've tried as well is the data incidents. As you know, we are a payment company. And if our payments doesn't work, incidents would happen. And because of that mindset from our backend engineers, it's super easy for us to use that same behavior when we're treating the data products, right? What we've often seen as well is when we started it, when Airflow fails, it goes to a Slack channel, right? It's super simple. But that doesn't give the backend engineers that might have created the issue themselves as a root cause to have visibility of the issue. So in this way, if we are integrating it with the same incident management system and alerting system, then we really have the same visibility of what the backend engineers are seeing and also the data analysts itself. Yes, Jake, you've been talking a lot already, right? You have multiple changes that you've done in your company and all of this stuff. But what I wanted to remind you that all of these changes didn't happen overnight. We really had to invest our time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears even with our team. And I would like to quote Dr. George Westerman from MIT. He had this talk about Gen AI transformation, where he said, technology is not the problem. Transformation is. So if you are going to adopt data mesh or try to implement some of the solutions we have just shown you, don't go from 0 to 100. Start incrementally. And now we're nearing the end of my talk, which is we're going to answer if your data product in your own organization is actually a five-star hotel. So every organization is different, right? You probably are using Snowflake, Databricks, DataHub, Atlan, Analytics Engineer, everything. It's probably different. We won't be the same. But even our data tiers are changing. Internally, we are now changing it. 2 weeks ago, we were talking to our staff analytics engineer. We're saying, hey, I think we need to change the definition of five-star, right? Because to be honest, we have a new customer in town. Before, our data products are just for humans, but not anymore. There are now Gen AI and LLMs that really want to plug in directly to your Snowflake or Databricks, and we have to be ready for that. But what will be the same is the five-star experience that you're providing, right? I would like to really suggest when you're creating this data mesh journey is to focus on the user experience, right? There's a lot of investment in the human aspect of things rather than the technology. And in there, please be mindful that, when people are asking about data mesh or data products, is to be supportive and treat them as there's no stupid questions out there. And if you would ask me, I would actually choose a 3-star hotel with a 5-star experience over a 5-star hotel with a 3-star experience, right? So my slides are, this should be SDF, by the way. So what we did in SumUp is we created 3 forums. One is our DBT Guild to support this human aspect and provide a 5-star experience. This is our bi-weekly forum focusing on the technical stuff. The second one is what we call Sustainable Data Foundations. Sustainable Data Foundations is our weekly forum with data analytics lead across the organization. As I've said, we are a 3,000 people company, so there are multiple information that we need to pass between the technical folks, the leads, and everyone else. What we've also added, and I think this is one of most look forward to, is our monthly data all hands. Our monthly data all hands really is the way for people to share their achievements, not just on the data product side. My favorite is when they are saving costs in Snowflake itself and all of these things. And to close my talk, yes, I know. The data mesh said treat data as a product. But don't treat it as a data product similar to a product when you're buying to a supermarket. Data needs support, operations, and everything in between, actually. And this is where I want you to think about if data is also a service. But in a combination of both, a great product and a great service means you have a 5-star data hotel. Thanks for listening, and Q&A.
You said transformation is the problem. I would like to ask you, what's happened with the PostgreSQL that you had at the beginning?
I see. In terms of the infrastructure part, so it's actually deprecated now as a data warehouse, right? So there are still data sources that are on that Postgres side of things, but all of the data processing is now, and transformation is now fully on Snowflake. So, but that's still as a backend. Yeah. Did I answer your question? Thank you.
Thank you for the talk. I have a question about, when you added another layer of like Gen AI ready or not. Can you just walk through like what counts as a Gen AI ready?
Huh.
And does it mean that all the tiers that were previously tier 5, a lot of them like became downgraded or something?
Yes. It's still a work in progress, but yes, most of the tier 5s will get downgraded. Even though we have the full description and everything that we have said, the metadata, as we have seen, it's not easily consumable by Gen AI and LLMs. We've heard about a lot of semantic modeling. This is what we're trying to do. So it's a bit easier for everyone to Gen AI to interpret it. So this one layer that we're trying to add during our few discussions in the company. She has a follow-up, I think. Oh, wait.
You want something else?
Can I just have a short follow-up? So what you've tried is to get a semantic model, a semantic layer in between. Maybe can you just talk a bit more what does it mean technically, especially as you have a distributed team?
Yeah. So we have multiple ways of how we could define our semantic modeling, right? What we're trying to what we have seen is we could actually use what Snowflake is offering as their semantic layer, and that's already big in between. But that's a bit short term for us, right? If we really want to have a semantic layer, we want it to be a bit more generic. So in this case, what we wanted to do is, hey, this is the data source. We don't call it a table, but just a data source and very generic. This is the revenue itself, and this is the definition and how you compute it itself when someone asks it, and really add more information to it. And right now, we're thinking it to be closer to Data Hub rather than Snowflake. So it's a bit easier for when you search the data, you also have a bit of the semantics in between.
Hello. It was a great session. Thank you. Just wanted to, if you could throw some light on the cultural transformation that would have required in your journey, because I can understand technology is fine, we can handle it, but how do you manage the teams, train them, and the management as well?
Yeah. I think the cultural aspect of it, again, like I mentioned, is not an overnight thing, right? When you really need, what we have tried is really to create this forums that like I mentioned. And on top of that, there's this, I call it the daily interactions itself that we try to do to understand really what people want from the data mesh itself. What I would also suggest to really have buy-in from the business people, right? Majority of our data mesh implementation came from, let's say, the technical and data folks, but it didn't came from the business. Because the business, when you say, hey, we're going to move to a data mesh, it's going to take 2 to 3 years to build it, you really need to explain to them the value and the return of investment on why we're doing it now itself. When we didn't explain that early, we really had a lot of frictions, to be honest. So I would say that's one aspect where you could really build the culture, is to talk to the business on what it means, because the data people would easily understand it. And yeah. Thank you. I think we have one more question, and there's one more at the back, and then we're gonna.
I'm wondering about the value. How have you tracked the value for all the investment that you have mentioned?
That's really that's a really nice question. We didn't have a tracking, in the first few years, but what we have tried to build now is to create a visibility within each domain on how much cost they have itself in terms of the data ingestion and data processing. Teams could actually just go to our UI and search payments domain, and they would see the cost itself. This is one side of it, right? And what we are asking in return is what is the value that they are creating in terms of, let's say, the marketing spend that they did, right? So that is being measured mostly on a quarterly basis by our leadership team itself, and that's where hey, this is the infrastructure cost, and this is the marketing spend and what we gain out of it. So since we have both of those information, we could actually calculate it. So yeah. Again, thanks for listening, and hope you enjoyed the talk.